Well, thanks, Matt Rickard. I appreciate it. Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad now as we are ready for a big-time weekend. And, Godfather, the weather today is spectacular. Blue skies, sunshine. It is fabulous outside, my friend.
Yes, I agree with that, Chad, and I wish I was out there. No offense.
All right, we got a lot of things we're going to get to on the show today. We got a lot of thoughts on the Trailblazers, on which veterans they should consider moving now once free agency kicks off here in a couple of days. We're going to share thoughts on Klay Thompson and where he's most likely to end up if it's not with the Golden State Warriors. We will get to the James Worthy audio that was leaked in Godfather. That was some amazing stuff because it was real talk. I don't like Big Game James, who is one of the best playoff performers I've ever seen, thrown under the bus. Yeah. But I'm glad the audio got out because I think it gives you an idea of how people really think about the situation when you choose to get in the same bed with LeBron James. But I want to start the show with the debate that we saw last night between Biden and Trump. And, look, we're not going to have political hot takes or support one candidate or the other. I think we can all agree it was one of the more bizarre debates, probably the most bizarre debate in presidential history. But, Godfather, I wanted to ask you about just the overall thought on this debate, and we're going to play some of the golf audio because I'll tell you what, guys, they lie about gambling and how much they're winning, and they lie about their golf game a lot. I see it constantly, and the golf topic that came up during the debate last night was fascinating. But here's my quick take on what I saw with the debate last night just by looking at it and seeing how it went. First off, why are we having a debate in the month of June? We're the end of June. We're far away from the conventions on both sides. I don't understand why they're having a debate. So that led me to believe that the big question around Biden was his cognitive ability. And so my thought was they set up a debate. They get him out there. If he succeeds, then they move forward, and he's the president that they're going to choose and support through the election. If he fails, that gives them time to come up with Plan B and pick another candidate, and they can remove Biden before the convention coming up. That was my quick take and my thought on the setup last night. And then I also thought it was interesting that I thought the debate format and the way CNN handled it actually was very entertaining. I liked the way that they had the mics set up to mute so that each candidate had a chance to speak. And I thought the moderators were pretty fair, which I think in a lot of ways put Biden in a bad position. So that's my quick take. I think they were putting Biden out there early to see what he was like, to see how fit he was. And if he failed, which I think he probably did, like most people do, then now I think they can go to Plan B and start to see if they can find ways to come up with a different candidate. That's my quick take on what I saw last night. What was your takeaway?
Well, Chad, I'll tell you what. I'm a young guy compared to those two guys. But I do know this. I'm not qualified to run for president because my golf handicap is nowhere near those tremendous golfers that we watched on TV last night. Single digit handicaps for those guys, I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, pretty interesting. Do you think that – didn't you think it was odd to have a debate in June this early before the election?
Well, odd, yeah. It's the first time in history, I believe, that two candidates, supposedly candidates, debated before the conventions. Neither is actually the official candidate of either party. They haven't been, ratified yet at their conventions. This has never happened before, and I think you're onto something, Chad. I think, and supposedly it was Biden's people who insisted that they do it now, which would kind of lead you to believe that this was some sort of a test to see how he held up under this kind of pressure, because they had to know, given what we've seen over the last few months, they had to know this probably wouldn't go well.
Okay, this right here is going into the Soundbite Hall of Fame, wherever that's at. It's one of my favorite things that I've seen in quite some time, but nothing better than two old guys arguing about a golf game. Take a listen to this.
Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie that he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have,
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Hey, let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to turn.
Let's not act like children.
Wow.
Godfather, those two guys are running for president of the United States. How awesome is that? All right. This is one of the all-time great situations because the one thing that I pick up on the golf course more than just about anything, you either have the guy who is brutally honest and comes out right before you tee off in the morning and says, look, I suck, and I just want to warn you ahead of time. I'm not good. I'm just here to have a good time and enjoy the weather and the beautiful scenery. Mm-hmm. I respect that. Yeah. Then you have the guy that dresses the part, looks the part. He sucks, but he likes to lie about his golf handicap and his game and all the different exploits that he's had on the golf course. And through the entire debate, that was the one comment that twisted Trump up the most is when Biden talked about having a 6 handicap. He couldn't believe it, and then he switched it back to 8. But, that's the kind of stuff that I see on the golf course all the time. Hey, what's your handicap? Oh, about a 7. And you see him take a swing, and you're like, yeah, I don't really believe that. And then you see throughout the course, it's like, oh, yeah, I got a par in that hole. Yeah, you're not counting the mulligan. And then you see them moving the ball around with their foot and all sorts of nonsense, man. There is nothing better than old guys arguing about a golf game. And then I saw Bryson DeChambeau jump in and say, we have to make this happen. 1 match, 18 holes, winner gets the presidency. I would be all about that. That would be a pay-per-view event like you've never seen before, Godfather.
Oh, that would be so sad. It would be. I could not watch those two guys play golf for 18 holes. I'm sorry. That would be worse than sitting there and watching that whole debate. But I was going to mention to you too, Chad. I agree with you with the moderators. I thought they did a great job in the new rules where they could cut the mics off. They were holding them to the time limits. I thought that was good stuff. I think they've got the debate thing down fine. Now if they could just find 2 good debaters, they'd be okay.
Yeah, it was fascinating. I did like the format. I thought it was entertaining television, and it was a good setup, and I enjoyed that. But the golf game stuff, and you probably see that all the time too, Godfather. I know Nancy's run into it as well, where, sometimes if you're in a tournament or you're playing with certain people, sometimes their scoring or the way they keep track of their score may not be as accurate as other forms and the other ways that people keep track of their score. People get a little bit shifty out there in the golf course, and it's supposed to be a gentleman's game, but what I've found is that a lot of times it's anything but a gentleman's game. But I'll tell you what, if you want to get 2 old guys riled up, start arguing and talking about your golf swing, your golf game, and your handicap, and that's a surefire way to do it. That was unbelievable. Can you believe they were talking about that? And having a driving contest? We got to get these 2 guys at Topgolf, man. I need that in my life.
Topgolf would be fun. Yeah, they have to hit those targets. I don't even know what to say about it, Chad, other than we're here debating about serious things, and you right at the end where, you're supposed to be doing your summations and really hitting the hardest, just as the time to leave them with something, and you start arguing about your golf games. I mean, come on. What are we doing here? This is the best we have as a country. Right here, these 2 guys. These are the prime candidates for the president of the most powerful country in the world. Wow. So
who do you think the alternate candidate would be? You think it would be Michelle Obama, Gretchen Whitmer? Would it be Gavin Newsom, who was featured prominently last night? He was rolling around. Who would you guess they might go after to take over for Biden?
Oh, man. Gavin Newsom is the name I hear the most. I think, actually, Michelle Obama would have a much better chance of winning. But I heard, actually, I was speaking with her brother a couple of years ago. He was over at Moda Center. He works for an NBA team now, and I told him that. I said, why didn't Michelle ever show any interest in running for president? She could have won. And he said, well, she's been in the White House long enough to know that's not something she wants to do. And so I think that's probably the case. She's never shown any interest in it. And I do believe she'd be a viable candidate for them to run.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's a dirty business, and you got to think twice about doing something like that.
God.
I will say this. You and I wondered how much we would watch of the debate. Would it be highlights? Would you flip away? I know a lot of people said that once it started to get a little bit murky that they would turn away and watch something else. But because of the setup and the way they ran the debate and the moderators and with the microphones and no one was talking over one another, It kept my attention, which is good. I like to see that, having better debate setups. So, if there is another debate here in the near future, maybe we'll get a similar setup in terms of format, and it can be equally entertaining. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right. We got to get to a lot of other things. I want to ask you about this, Godfather. You had a chance to talk to numerous people around the league in regards to the Trailblazers, and obviously you and I know that they're in pursuit of young assets, whether that's players or picks. I think Joe Cronin said they're in the business of talent acquisition. That's really what it's all about right now, and they've got multiple veteran pieces on their roster right now that really don't fit the timeline or the grand plan of what they're trying to do over the next year. But these veterans could be considered valuable to other teams out there looking to contend for a championship, whether it's Matisse Thybulle and his defensive acumen and what he brings. If you need extra depth and have a wide body like Robert Williams, he could be of value if healthy. Obviously, you've got Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant, valuable pieces. But when it comes to the Blazers, what are you hearing on Anthony Simons, a young guard who's got a lot of potential? He's still improving, a big-time scorer, great shot maker, and obviously a guy that can handle the rock as well. What are you hearing about Ant when you talk to guys around the league?
Well, I did speak to several people I know, and I'll say right at the start, Chad, they've all sworn me to secrecy because this would probably violate some kind of, tampering rules or whatever if word got out, even what team they work for or anything like that. So
unless you're Rich Paul, and then you can say whatever you want, right?
Exactly. If you have that kind of power, you're good. But what I heard the most, and particularly from one source who I think knows what's going on, is that the most likely, and we talked about this yesterday a lot, who's the most likely veteran to go first? And I asked that question specifically to everybody I talked to, and the one person said, for me, without a doubt, it's going to be Anthony Simons going first. And I said, why? And he said, well, number one, he's the best asset they have, and I don't know how much he's going to play this year. And if he doesn't play a lot and get a chance to show what he can do, his value won't be as high next year. Everybody knows him now. They know what he's capable of. His contract is workable enough and nice enough that you don't mind taking a couple of years on it. It's pretty good. And he's in the way of Scoot Henderson. And there just seems to be a unanimity about that. People thinking, really, as long as Simons is here, it somehow does influence the career of Scoot Henderson. That it's a player who's going to be behind him, who people will perceive as being better than him, maybe restrict his growth a little bit, cut his minutes down a little bit. So I think for those reasons, they're saying Simons might be the first guy to go. And I think, Chad, and you pointed this out, and I agree with you, the comment that Joe Cronin made during the press conference after the draft on the first day was, we're committed to those two young guys in the backcourt, Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson. And Simon's name was never mentioned during that news conference at all. Now, maybe that's just oversight. You don't always say what you meant to say or whatever, but I would just. All of this makes sense to me. I don't know. What do you think, Chad? Does this make sense that would be the reason he might go first?
Well, what was that line you told me that a lot of times you can get your point across by what you don't say? How does that saying go?
Yeah, sometimes you can say what you want by not saying it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that Anthony Simons, who is probably their best player, well, let's stick with that real quick. Who is their best player right now? Is it Simons? Is it Jeremy Grant? Is it Ayton? Who is the best player on the roster? Probably Ant, maybe?
Oh, I think it's Ant without question, Chad.
Okay.
I do. I think, can play two positions, certified scorer. I mean, I think people see him as a 25-point game a guy.
Okay. Well, here's my take on Simons. One, I agree. He's probably their best player. As long as Chauncey Billups is the head coach and he's got access to Anthony Simons, he's going to continue to start him because he's a starter and he's the best player on the team and he wants to win games. And so if Simons is here, he's going to start and take minutes away from Scoot Henderson, who is your prize pick, number 3 overall last year, and you need him to develop. So as long as Simons is here, he will play, and he will start, and he will get the majority of minutes at that position. The problem with trying to play Scoot and Simons together, I know they talked about that at the end of last year, but it never materialized because of injury. I don't believe that Simons and Scoot can work in the backcourt because I think they play the same position. So I don't think it can work together. Mm-hmm. And so that creates an issue as well. So I go back to what you said, is that you can't be worried about what someone's going to become when you trade him and he winds up on another team. So if you move Simons, you're doing it because you're committing to your future with Scoot and Shaden, and you're not going to worry about what he becomes. And I think we've seen enough of Simons to know what he is as a basketball player, meaning he's a great scorer, can shoot the three, he can create for himself, not a great defender, but definitely a dynamic offensive player, and someone who's a difference maker on that side of the floor. But I don't think he's going to become much greater than what we see right now. And the truth is, they made their decision. They drafted Shaden. They drafted Scoot. You've got to open it up and allow these guys to play. And most importantly, by allowing Simons to go elsewhere, that further helps you in your mission for what you're trying to do, which is be one of the worst three teams in basketball next year so you can have a shot at Cooper Flag. So I would agree. If the right deal comes along, it would make a lot of sense to make the move on Simons now. The question is, what is the right price, and what are you looking to get back in return? Are you looking for young players? Are you looking for picks in next year's draft? Are you looking for a combination of picks and players? I mean, what would you be looking to get in return for Anthony Simons, who we both agree is probably their best piece?
Well, Chad, I think the reality is you'd want picks. But the reality of it is you may not get picks, at least not in the near term. I would be real interested in a pick in next year's draft. I don't know if they can get that or not, but this guy, Simons, has value, no question about it. If you don't get a good pick for him, and okay, you can't get next year's draft, get a potential lottery pick in the following year's draft, okay? Because that's probably going to be a pretty good one, too. People are saying a lot of international players will be in that one who are really good players. So you just kind of have to build that way. And again, you hit the nail on the head. They're trying to be one of the three worst teams next year. Let's be honest about that. That's what the goal is. It has to be the goal. Okay, if you really want to get good, that's got to be your goal. So don't take back a player that's going to help you win games next season. Don't do that.
Hey, Chad, too, to give you an idea of value, breaking news coming across, the Atlanta Hawks just traded DeJounte Murray to the Pelicans. And the Pelicans gave up Larry Nance Jr., Dyson Daniels, and 2 first-round picks, including one in next year's draft.
Wow.
Oh.
Wow. They traded Dejounte Murray. Are the Hawks going into full rebuild mode, Godfather? Are they going to trade Trae Young now?
Well, it sure sounds like it, doesn't it? When you give up on Murray, a good young player who's
great player,
a lot better than Trae Young, I think, in most people's opinion. But my boy Griffin over in New Orleans, he hornswoggled somebody else in a deal, I think. Boy, you add him to that team, that's a pretty good player to be talking about.
Now, Burkhart, do you think Dejounte Murray is a better player than Ant?
I do think he's a better player than Ant. He's a bona fide scorer. He's good on the defensive end, athleticism through the roof, brings ton of length to both sides of the ball. I do think Dejounte Murray is better than Ant.
But there is similarity there, right? So if you can get multiple players and picks for Dejounte Murray, you can definitely get, picks or a pick and young players for Ant, I would think.
Yeah, I think if you get those 2 picks right there for Murray, then I think Ant's at least getting you 1 back in return, no doubt.
Yeah, Godfather. I think Dejounte Murray, one of the best young players in basketball that no one talks about. I love his game. Terrific young player.
I would say this. I think Simons would be better offensively, but not even close defensively. So if everybody now is looking for those two-way guards, guys who can play at both ends of the court, then Murray would be your guy, and that is what people are looking for. And it's certainly what they need down in New Orleans. I think for the Pelicans, this is a really nice deal.
Well, the one thing about Ant, there are a number of teams out there that could use a playmaker, but also a guy that can create for himself and be able to knock down the three at a high percentage. So I think his offensive traits, there are a lot of teams that could use a player like Ant who can bring his skill set on the
Sure.
offensive end and help them out for teams who are looking for that. I think Orlando could use a player like Ant. We've talked about the need. Milwaukee had that need for quite some time next to Giannis having a playmaker. There are teams out there that could use a guy like Ant to be able to score, create for himself, and knock down the three. So there's got to be opportunities out there.
Yeah, for sure. I would also say pencil in one more team in the tankathon for next year, and that would be the Atlanta Hawks, because this is a pretty clear indication that they like the looks of that lottery next year too, and they're going to go for it.
Well, it doesn't mean that they're committing to Trae Young, right? They're just looking to move and get as many assets as possible.
Yeah.
Trae Young's probably the next piece.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think there's any doubt. They're clearing the books out, and you're going to see them. They're not going to be left with much if they trade Trae Young. I'll tell you that.
Well, and if the Lakers, who have draft picks to move, if they're looking to pick up Trae Young, the Hawks can move him and get more draft capital in the process to continue to push forward and start this rebuild process.
Yeah,
they gave it a run. They tried to put a team together. It didn't work, and so they're recognizing that, and now they're moving in a totally different direction.
I would say the only thing is the Lakers, they could have used Murray a heck of a lot more than Trae Young. Murray would have been a great piece for the Lakers, and they weren't in on it apparently.
All right, we'll keep things rolling here. Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. We'll get to the James Worthy leaked audio at 4:20. It's fabulous. I can't wait to play it for you. You can reach out and hit up Dwight. You'll find him on social media at Dwight James. You'll find me there at Chad and Rip City. We're also available on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and pull up Rip City Radio. You'll find us right there. Live links to our shows. Hope you're enjoying this fabulous Friday. The sunshine here in the Northwest. We are officially in summer, and it is awesome. All right, what's going on? 4 o'clock chat here. The Golden State Warriors and guard Chris Paul intend to move the date to guarantee the $30 million on his contract to the start of free agency Sunday. Both sides will look for a trade. Trailblazers to hold a press conference tomorrow, 10 a.m. at the practice facility in Tualatin to introduce Donovan Clingan, their new rookie from UConn, to Rip City. Woj reporting the Hawks are sending Dejounte Murray to the Pelicans for 2 firsts, Larry Nash Jr., and more. The Mavs trade Tim Hardaway Jr. to the Pistons for Quentin Grimes to save cash. Free agency will be in full force coming up on Sunday. The M's are back home after a rough road trip, leading the West down to 4.5 games. They host the Twins tonight. That first pitch at 6:40. Logan Gilbert on the mound for Seattle. More of the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Chris Burkhardt is with us here on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, what's going on, my friends? We got the crew with us today. The Godfather is here. Chris Burkhardt is here, and we're getting ready for a big-time weekend. And, of course, next week, the 4th of July, and it's going to be a chance to enjoy the summertime and the sunshine, which is here in the Northwest. We love it, and we have a lot of different things we want to get to. 420, we're going to get into the James Worthy leaked audio, which is fabulous. James Worthy, uncut and unscripted, sharing his thoughts on LeBron James and what it's like for the Lakers to do business with LeBron James. And I think he shared some thoughts on the drafting of Bronny James, so it's pretty wild. Also, we'll hear those comments from Bob Myers in regards to Rich Paul. So a lot of stuff going on with the Lakers. And if you want to reach out, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Dwight's on Twitter, on social media, at Dwight Janes. You'll find me there at Chad in Rip City. And if you look us up on YouTube at Rip City Radio, you'll find our homepage, and you can click and subscribe and be able to take part in our live stream, our chat, and you'll find us there. Godfather, I wanted to ask you about Donovan Clingan. With some of the people that you've spoken to around the league, what's the consensus on the big man out of UConn that Portland was able to secure at number 7 in Wednesday's draft?
Well, I'll tell you, Chad, I couldn't find anybody who said anything bad about him. People like him. I think the future's bright. He's a guy that everyone respects. They respect his work ethic, his desire to win. He's a winner, no question. And I think they see a lot of potential in him, especially at the defensive end, where people believe he's going to be a very, very good rim protector. The one thing I would say, and I think this is true from what I've seen in the league, he'll be better as a shot blocker and rim protector when he gets better players around him. You know, when you don't have great defenders around that rim protector, he can kind of go crazy trying to block all the penetrations he sees against his defenders. You know, you have to help him a little bit. And it's easier if you have good offensive players not to have to worry about getting great contributions from him on offense, where it's going to take some time for him on offense. There's no doubt about it. He's going to need lobs. He's going to need offensive rebounds, which he is good at, putbacks, tip-ins, those kinds of things, because he's not, at least in the beginning, going to be a guy who's going to go out and hit jump shots for you.
You know, that stuff about, his winning record, the championships he's won in college and high school, that, winning attitude or coming from a culture of winning, like, is that overblown, or can that really help a young team that's learning how to win and become a team in the NBA? Do you think that gets overblown, or can he really bring something to the culture here in Portland based on, the program that he's come out of?
Oh, Chad, I think he can bring something, yeah. And that's what they're hoping for. I talked to Joe Cronin about that after his news conference. And he said, because it's going to be hard on him. It's going to be real hard on
devastating.
Yeah, to come from, how many games did they lose at UConn? They're not used to losing at all. And so, he's coming here where they're going to lose quite regularly. No question.
He's going to
about it.
lose more games in the first 2 weeks of the NBA
Yeah.
season than he ever did in his career at UConn. That's going to be quite a eye-opening experience for a young guy. He's like, wait a second, what's up with this? I don't know what it means to lose. I've never done this before.
Right.
That's going to be a rough adjustment for him.
Yeah, but, at the same time, the hope is, and Joe mentioned this to me, the hope is he brings some of that winning culture with him and that drive, and that it rubs off on people. That kind of stuff can be contagious. If one of your leaders, and he could become your defensive leader playing that position, that's what you want your rim protector to do, because he's got all the other defenders in front of him most of the time. You'd like him to be the leader at that end of the court. If he is a big competitor, then, hey, maybe it rubs off. Maybe they will gain a little bit from having him around.
But I tell you what, if he comes out and he becomes a difference maker for Portland, between he and Chet Holmgren, they could restore all faith that I have in the American-born white big man. This could be a groundbreaking situation for me, Godfather.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question about if he never develops the offensive game or the three-point shot, can you get by with a guy who maybe is limited on offense in terms of what he provides, but because his defense and his rim protection, his help out in the pick and roll, his communication on that end of the floor is so good, can you get by with that if he never develops offensively?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, it will limit you offensively to a degree, Chad. But if you're, we've played this game before. If you're good enough at the offensive end with other players, and he's going to help you defensively. I don't think there's any question about that. Once he gets his feet on the ground in the NBA, he's going to be a big time help on the defensive end. We saw that with Gobert, even in the early years when he couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat in the middle of the Willamette. But just because he didn't hit shots doesn't mean at the defensive end he wasn't an anchor, and he was. So, yeah, you can win with a guy like that. Yeah, but he will develop offensively just as Gobert has to a certain degree.
Do you think Clingan has a 6 handicap?
Well, he might say he does. I don't know. The good thing about handicaps is you can look them up now. If you have a GEN number yourself, you can go in and find somebody else's. But I didn't even bother to look at those two guys to see if they have registered handicaps.
All right, question for you. Tomorrow, you and Berkey are going to be down at the press conference where Donovan Clingan is going to be introduced to Rip City. What are you looking to hear from him? What are you curious about? Because I know you were excited about the possibility of getting Clingan and seeing him in a Trailblazer uniform. So what are you hoping to learn at his introductory press conference?
Well, the first thing, Chad, is a more immediate nature than anything else, and that is, are you going to play Summer League, which I assume he is. And that'll be fun to watch him. And just incidentally, their first Summer League game, I think, is July 13th, if I'm not mistaken. And that so happens is against the San Antonio Spurs. So could we see Clingan versus Wemby? I don't know. I don't know if Wemby's going to play Summer League.
Oh, gosh. If they sent him to
not.
Summer League, that would be a travesty. Yeah.
I think he's probably going to play. He's playing in the Olympic team for France, right? Isn't he? I think he is.
I would imagine so. But
Yeah.
seriously, like if Pop asked Wemby to go to Summer League, I'd be like, look, old man, I'm not going to go play in that league. I'm
Yeah.
good. You know what
Yeah.
you have in me. You don't need to see any more. But, no, that's good. Yeah, Summer League. I want to see Clingan down there. I feel bad for him because Summer League is not really designed or best suited for big men.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it'll be nice to see him on the floor and see how he moves. And, I've seen enough bad defense around here over the last several seasons that the idea of having an enforcer, a rim protector, someone who, embraces that into the floor, like I'm attracted to that type of player. I want more of that.
Yeah, he's going to be that, I believe. But you're absolutely right about Summer League. It's a guards game. The one good thing, I think, for Trailblazer fans is most of these games, if not all of them, will be telecast. I know the first one is going to be on ESPN2. At least that's what they're saying now. Those things can change, but it's scheduled to be. And so we'll get a chance to see him in Summer League, and that's great.
Yeah. Hey, Burkhart, what are you looking for in that press conference tomorrow? What are you hoping to learn from the newest Blazer, Donovan Clingan?
Well, you're going to talk to him, and Billups is going to be there too. I kind of want to get the idea of does he or coach or anyone see a scenario where he and DeAndre Ayton can maybe play together. Right. I think that's actually kind of important. I mean, everyone automatically goes to the whole DeAndre Ayton is out of here because they drafted a center. But at the same time, Minnesota just ran 2 bigs out there, and that's what they needed to get past Denver, right? So maybe there's a little, truth to that there. So I want to kind of get their feelers out there to see how they're feeling about those 2 bigs.
Well, that's a good transition, Godfather. What are your thoughts on DeAndre Ayton now with the acquisition of Clingan? They still got a couple of years left on his deal. Like, where do you see Ayton after year 1 in Portland?
Oh, honestly, Chad, I think they're going to try and move on from him, but I think it's going to be difficult to move him at this point. I don't think many NBA teams have changed their opinion of him from when he was in Phoenix. They saw what happened in Portland in the second half of the season when he was really the only real player the Blazers kept out on the court down the stretch of the season. They constantly got him the ball. He's a high-volume, mid-range shooter who doesn't do much rim protecting. And there's not a great market for those players right now. And there is still some concern that he would be not generally engaged if he's not a number 1 option. So I think they might have to wait to move him after this next year when he'll be an expiring contract. And he does make, max money. So that makes it even more difficult to move him. We'll see, though. And I think a lot of Blazer fans are high on him. People like him. But I don't believe the feeling around the league is that he has a whole lot of value. Well,
let me ask you this. Everyone that I hear from around the league, all the basketball heads, they talk about Ayton almost like he's a lost cause. So yeah. What could Ayton do, or what approach should he take to reshape how people view him? What would he need to do?
Well, I guess develop more of his game, and that would be instead of just mid-range shooting, move it out to the three-point line if he can. That always helps centers. It did a little bit even for Nurk that he was able to go out there and hit a 3 once in a while. Then I think be a little tougher around the basket, rebound a little more, even though he's a pretty good rebounder, but then be a little more of a rim protector, see if that works out for him. I know he's not a born rim protector that has that natural sense of timing that Clingan has, but we'll see. I don't know if he can change minds. That's hard to do, Chad, especially in a situation. He's here on a team where it's not a team winning a lot of games, so people discount stats a little bit because, there's not a lot of other players he has to share the ball with.
It's just weird to me when you have a player of that caliber with that type of skill set, a former number 1 overall pick. I mean, he can do a lot of good things on the floor, but everyone talks about him like he's a lost cause. Like, he's not going to be able to turn it around. He won't be able to change his attitude. He'll never be able to work if he's not the number 1 option. Like, it's just weird to me because I like him, Godfather. I like his game and what he can bring to the court. I would just like to know, like, what a coach would want from him to change. Like, how do you change the narrative that you can't get it done and be a productive member of the team if you're not the number 1 option?
Well,
because he did that during the finals run with Phoenix when he was with the Suns.
Well, yeah, he ended up not playing really much at all for them towards the end of that playoff run. And I think, look, his unfortunate thing is the best thing he does is the least desirable thing for a lot of NBA teams, which is mid-range shooting. They're looking for dunks and threes right now. Everybody in the league, that's what they're looking for. That's not what he does best. He's a mid-range shooter. And I think what he can do, show up for practice on time, be the guy doing a lot of extra work, stay out of trouble, make sure there's no incidents at all, just be a good teammate, help other players out, all those kinds of things that earn trust from a coach.
All right, real quick question. Can they afford to deal Ayton and Williams this summer and then leave yourself pretty bare in the middle with Dewap Reef and Donovan Clingan?
Well, I don't think Williams would be much of a factor to deal because he's hurt quite frequently. He does have value. He would be another possible trade guy. As far as leaving yourself bare at center, let's not forget, what are they trying to do next year, Chad? they'll pick up a backup center, or they have Reith there. And hey,
well, what I'm saying is, if you trade Williams and Ayton this summer, then you go into the season with just Clingan and Reith at the center position. Can you get by with that based on the attrition that you're going to suffer throughout the year?
No, aren't you trying to lose?
Yes. So what you're saying is they would go after, you would just pick up a minimum big or some type of guy of the scrap heap.
Moses Brown comes back. You know, a number 3 center, something like that. Yeah, look, no offense to anyone, but we're trying to be honest about this. The whole goal next year is to lose enough games to be in the bottom 3.
No, I understand. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
The biggest issue I have is how DeAndre Ayton somehow can't work in the NBA. Like, it drives me crazy. Like, I don't understand how a guy like that with that much skill set can't find a way to carve out a niche in the NBA. I mean, is it all attitude-based, Godfather?
Well, there is some of that, and that's what the reputation is, the attitude problems.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk about something a lot more exciting. We're going to play the James Worthy leaked audio, and we'll get into the Lakers mess. It's fascinating. You can take a listen, and we'll get your reaction to that. Chris Burkhardt, Dwight James, Chad Doing, you got the Rip City Drive. All right, we got the James Worthy leaked audio that we're going to play in just a moment. And Burkhart, you can jump in on this conversation too. Godfather, just for a couple of minutes, I just want to talk about the centers in the NBA because I'm having a hard time adjusting to how everyone looks at centers now because really if you're not Chet Holmgren, Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, or Anthony Davis, it's almost like there's teams find a difficult way to use those type of bigs. It's really weird to me because a lot of these guys can do good things, but many of them can't step out and shoot the three ball. Some of them are limited when it comes to pick and roll defense, but they might be a good rim protector. I mean, how are teams going to find ways for these bigs to be able to play and utilize them when they're not the perfect player? That's the part that's weird for me because Ayton can do a lot of good things on the floor, but he does have limitations. Nurk was the same way. And if you look around the league at some of these other guys, there are a lot of guys who can do good things, but there's limitations in how they play or what they can do on the floor. Even Rudy Gobert, who was Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that at all, but it's been that way for a while once teams started spreading the floor, going small lineups, playing 5 out, all those things that meant that bigs have to go out on the floor now. If you don't have a center, that's the way you play, and that forces the other team's center to come out on the floor and defend where he's uncomfortable. Now, the new age centers are better at doing that than the old-timers were, obviously. They're not the hulking 300-pound guys either. They're more sleek and better athletically, so they have a better chance of being able to do that. But the other way to go is against the grain, and Cleveland's tried to do that, played as many as 3 bigs at one time. Minnesota's trying to play 2 bigs at one time. You can make that work if you're resolute in playing good all-around defense, and then being able to score enough to win that way. And you're going to have to score without using your big a lot of times, but you have the other team's smaller guys trying to defend your big, so that works too. I don't know the answer to that, and I think we're seeing more and more teams going back to the bigs. I think you'll see Edey have more success than people think he will because if a team that gets him uses him as a low-post guy, there's really not too many teams that can guard him at the low block. He's really good down there. And so you're going to have to take that into consideration. Now, those points only come 2 at a time. But if he can shoot 65 to 70% from down there, that changes things too. So
that's true.
It's just it's a battle constantly in that league to see how that comes out every night. And it's like we've seen Jokic have success at the low block. We've seen some players do it and some not. So I don't even know, and I think that's the question that every coach and GM is trying to answer.
Well, the difference with Jokic is that he can play on the block. He can play the mid-range. Obviously. He can also bring the ball up the floor. He can shoot the three. He's the perfect type of center in today's game. I guess what I'm trying to say is that this isn't the case internationally because these guys are being trained differently. But if you're a young big man in the U.S., you better learn how to run the floor. You better have good mobility. You better be able to defend away from the basket. And you better start working on your three-point shot right now. That's really what it comes down to, Godfather. These bigs, these young bigs, they got to work differently, be trained differently so they can enter the league if they have an opportunity and play the game the way it's being played now.
Yeah, and Chad, the problem for them is that AAU basketball is a lot like what we were talking about in the summer league. It's a guards game. They don't give the ball up. Everything's ISO, one-on-one. And there's that big just standing there waiting for somebody to throw him the ball. He can't get the ball himself unless he does it off the board. He's not going to bring it up court. So it's a difficult situation for developing them until we got a better system of developing all of our players.
All right, this tweet was put out by Jacob the Clipper. It says, leaked audio. James Worthy, obviously former Laker great, off the air talking about Bronny James sarcastically. He also talks about Lakers management being terrible and trading everyone and changing coaches often. Lakers legends are getting the full LeBron experience. Let's take a listen to this James Worthy leaked audio.
Then they got the right coaches in there, and so they did it right. They took their time. They waited. While we were trading Ingram, Randall, we were trading everything. Pope, gone.
Firing everybody.
The brother up in Sacramento, Malik,
Yep, everybody gone.
We were trading and then we wasn't getting anything for it. Westbrook gone.
Everybody.
So the ink will
Luke gone. Frank gone.
the ink will lead back to the problem, which is in that infrastructure.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, I got you.
3rd and 5 years.
No.
If you want to go before that, you could go 4 and 8 because Luke was 3 years, right? Yeah.
It's all happening.
3 and 5 sounds crazier to me.
It's all happening when Phil came here.
4 and 8's a lot.
With Phil.
Brez, we did the math. 3rd coaching hire show in 5 years.
What's up, B? How you doing?
And then 4 and 8 if you count Luke.
We just
Because
be
that was
back,
3 years
man.
before.
All week. Well,
16 was Luke.
and Thursday. Back to back.
It's too much.
Yeah, man, they don't need me for that.
Do you want me this close to Geet?
Who we gonna be waiting for in the second day?
Dude, just wait till you to talk about it that night. We're gonna be dying, dude. It's gonna hurt us.
Well, he's the greatest young player ever right now. But Bronny, that's what I'm gonna say. Then they got.
I think that F-bomb he said. There you go. That's pretty impressive, Godfather. James Worthy, without realizing the mic was on, opening up and sharing his true thoughts. First off, what I want to know is who threw Big Game James under the bus there and leaked that audio out?
Yeah.
You can't be doing that to a big-time player like Worthy.
Very unfortunate. Probably cost him some money, too, because he's probably getting paid pretty good money to go on there and do that. I just wonder when he went on the air if he really did call him the greatest young player in the game. Because really dripping with sarcasm.
But don't you think that this is how a lot of people around the league, around the Lakers, how they truly see the situation with LeBron? But, of course, they would never say it publicly because of the backlash that they would receive, especially if they're in a high-profile media position. I mean, that's kind of what I feel.
Of course.
They feel this way. That's what they think, but they're not going to speak it publicly because they don't want the backlash. And, obviously, if you come out against LeBron, he will come hunting your head. That's what he does.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate, too, that a lot of really independent media sources are so terrified of Clutch and LeBron that they don't say anything. It's amazing to me. And, of course, don't look to ESPN because he's got a lock on those guys. They're just handcuffed. They can't say anything.
They're professional ball washers. That's what they do. Now, I will say this. Bob Myers, former terrific general manager for the Warriors, he was on ESPN during their draft coverage, and he was not part of he did not get the memo to wash balls. He actually said something that surprised me, but take a listen to this clip discussing Rich Paul prior to the Lakers drafting Bronny James.
Bob Myers, you promised at the top of the show that 30 minutes in, you would have an update for us on Bronny James, and we're 56.
Well, I don't get a chance to say anything.
So would you like to say it
Stephen
now?
A. talks a lot. There's other stuff going on.
Break some news. Stop whining.
Yeah, it sounds like an update.
Listen, exactly. Okay, fine. I will say
15 seconds.
Right now, Rich Paul's calling teams, don't take Bronny James. He's telling them, do not take him, okay? He's saying, don't take him. If you take him, he's going to Australia. So he has a plan and he has a place.
But he's not telling the Lakers.
I don't know if he's telling one team that.
Mark Tatum.
There you go. Bob Myers came out and said that Rich Paul was actively calling teams. You and I discussed this a couple of weeks ago, Godfather. We thought that would be the plan. They didn't want any monkey business from another team stepping in to take Bronny James to mess with the Lakers. So Rich Paul let it be known that, hey, leave him alone. The Lakers are going to draft him. We don't want you to touch him. And he made it very clear. I mean, that's collusion, and you can't do that. But, of course, they worked at back channels to make sure that everyone knew the deal. Classic.
Yeah, I will say, and since that was said, it has come out quite often that this happens. This is the first time somebody's done something like that. It does happen. The question is whether anybody – supposedly the same thing was said about Mobley in Cleveland, and they took him anyway. And they were told not to take him. But they did, and no retribution that anybody knows about. But I don't really know if Bob Myers is going to get in trouble for that because, hey, he spent his career with the Golden State Warriors and has no love for the Lakers, I'm sure. So it was only appropriate. It was only appropriate.
of course, the problem I have is this, Godfather. It's like, look, if LeBron wants to try and play with the sun, that's one thing. But the issue is that when you have a power broker like Rich Paul, who represents Clutch, who is a phenomenally powerful agency that represents all the top talent, what if a team did want Bronny James and felt like Bronny James could really help their team out? They can't draft him? Even if they have a draft pick ahead of the Lakers, you're not allowed to take Bronny James? What if it's a different player?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can't be strong-arming teams into making decisions. I just don't like it and the precedence that sets. What if a team truly thought that Bronny James was the right pick for them and wanted to take him?
Well, I agree with you totally. The one thing I would say, and I think the reason teams didn't do it, is I think everybody's right about Bronny James, and he wasn't worth a second-round pick. And teams thought, yeah, it'd be kind of fun to just mess with the Lakers and take him. But why would we draft a guy we don't think can play? And it's like, no, there's other guys out there who can maybe help us. We'll take a flyer on somebody else because we believe more strongly in him than we do Bronny James. And I think that's
the whole
happened.
reason – well, of course, but the whole reason for drafting Bronny James would be to force the Lakers to give up assets to get him from you.
Yeah.
That's why you would do it. That would be the fun part, that you could actually get some usable assets in a deal for a player that may not be NBA ready in Bronny James. That would be funny. I just don't like teams being told they can't do this or do that because the Lakers have their eyes set on someone. And I mean, what's to stop them from doing that when it comes to a player that might be better? What if they're trying to steer teams away from one particular guy so he can land in a different situation? Like, I know it goes on all the time. I'm just telling you I don't like it. It's wildly bizarre.
No, it should not be allowed, really. And I, if I'm operating another team, I'm not going to listen to it. If I want the guy, I'm taking the guy. And I just think in this case, probably nobody wanted him. But you're right, Chad, in what you're saying. It's just in this case, they were just making sure. I don't think they really thought somebody was going to take him. But the proof will be in the pudding. We'll see how he turns out. But most people don't see him as an NBA player. We'll see. He'll have every advantage, I'll tell you that. He'll get the best coaching. Their number one development guy will be working with him. He'll have the keys to the gym. He'll get playing time when he probably shouldn't. But he'll get every opportunity to prove everybody right that he's a great player all of a sudden.
Well, here's the reality. I mean, if you're going to lie down in the same bed with LeBron, you just have to be willing to embrace all the nonsense that comes with it.
Yeah.
And, look, I don't have a problem with a superstar, big-time athlete, trying to, dictate what he wants and how he wants the situation to be set up. The biggest issue I have, Godfather, is that anytime something goes sideways or there's failure or something doesn't go the way that they planned it, LeBron's not there to accept responsibility for that. The finger gets pointed at teammates.
Yeah.
It gets pointed at coaches when they get fired. There's no personal accountability. And if he would just come out and be like, hey, I set this up, this is what I wanted, and we didn't get the job done, that's unacceptable, and I take full responsibility for that, I would like to hear that from the guy who's getting to call all the shots, the superstar. Just show me that you're engaged and you acknowledge that, hey, I need to be better and I didn't get the job done, but we never get that from LeBron. And he's the one that's setting everything up, he and his crew. And that's what bothers me about it. It's crazy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's been this way for years now. And this is the guy, by the way, who spent last season telling people how Bronny was better than half the NBA right then. And he was a borderline college player in a lousy conference for a lousy team. And none of this makes sense. But whatever this kid is going through is so much LeBron's fault. And it's still, Nancy asked me last night, Chad, she said, has anybody ever asked Bronny what he thinks? And I said, well, they probably have. I haven't heard it. They probably have. But what's he going to say? What can he say? Yeah, I don't want to play with my dad. He's kind of locked in on what he has to say. But it's
he would give the same answer. He gives the same answer that any of us would give because I'm not going to throw my dad under the bus publicly. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that to my dad. And you know what? I mean, he's not the only son that's been pressured into something by their dad, and they want to please their dad, so they go along with it. There's a lot of boys that do that.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad has never really, truly put that type of pressure on me. But I still feel the need and the desire to do things to please him because I want, because I love him and I want his approval. I want my dad to be proud of me, and and he doesn't put that on me, but I feel the need to do it anyways because I want my dad's approval and I want him to be proud. And I'm sure Bronny, it's no different for Bronny, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
That's why it's weird to have dads put their sons in that type of position. It's bizarre.
It is.
Did you ask him, hey, LeBron, did you ask Bronny if he wanted to play for you? Did you ask him if he wanted your help ushering him into the NBA? I mean, did you ask him if he wanted your agency to make sure that he got a contract? I mean, all those things that he's doing for his son are nice, I guess, but I don't know. I mean, maybe ask him and see what he wants. Maybe Bronny wanted to go back to school for another year, but it's just weird, man. Anytime there's a dad who's, taking up the spotlight of the son, it just makes me, it makes my skin crawl, to be honest with you. I don't like it. There's something about it that's just unsavory. That's all.
Yeah, and Chad, can you imagine the locker room? You're going to see a couple guys whispering around about what is he doing here and all that stuff. Oh, there's LeBron. Shh, quiet. Because they don't want to say anything in front of LeBron Sr., but here's Bronny over here, and he's not going to be immediately accepted by the rest of the guys because they're thinking there should be a better player sitting in that locker right now.
Yeah, hopefully, unless we have another James Worthy situation where one of their teammates tapes the audio and they're sharing the true feelings about LeBron and Bronny and all that. But I would imagine that guys will be, they're not going to take it easy on Bronny. He's going to get competition because they're going to want to show him up and, hopefully he'll be able to grow in that situation. But it's just hard for me.
Chad, wait until after the first practice or two. Let's ask some of the other players how Bronny looks. Oh, man, he's great. We're surprised. Yeah. He looks so great. Nobody's going to have the nerve to say, well, he's struggling a little bit, I don't think you're going to hear that.
No, you're not going to hear that. Absolutely not. No. And LeBron's just a fraud. That's all. That's how I see LeBron. I think he's a fraud, and he drives you crazy. He's a great player, one of the all-time greats, but he's a fraud. And he's been like that from day one, and it just irks me to no end. But, we got to suffer through it for another couple of seasons, Godfather.
Yeah, at least a couple more.
Oh, my gosh.
And
hopefully I'll never see him pop champagne.
Then he'll buy a team and be an owner, so there.
Well, I just don't want him to win another championship. That's all. And I think we're pretty safe there. I think we're pretty safe in that department. All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the Rip City Drive. If you want to jump on board, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. When we come back, the Magic and the Mavericks have their eyes set on a particular player. We'll give you the latest odds on that and where the benefit would be. We'll get back to the Trailblazers and some of the things that we're hearing just ahead of free agency. Do you argue with your friends about your golf handicap? Do you lie about your handicap like the two presidential candidates? We'd love to hear from you. Hope you're enjoying the Friday. It's beautiful outside. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, Godfather. Rip City Mike has reached out and he says, "Hey, Chad and Dwight, the only father-son combo that I know that played on the same team in professional sports is Ken Griffey Sr. and Jr. Do you know of any others, Godfather? Did Gordie Howe and his sons play together, or do you know of any others?"
Yeah, Gordie Howe actually played with both his sons at the same time.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I think Hartford Whalers. And he came out of retirement to do it, as I recall. I actually saw a game in Pittsburgh at the old Igloo when all three were playing together. And Gordie Howe, at about the age of, he must have been 50 probably, was unbelievable.
He was the ageless wonder.
Oh, hey, Chad, nobody went near him on the ice. You didn't touch him, or he would just absolutely, he would carve you to pieces with his stick, and nobody'd even see it. I mean, he was amazing. And those two kids were both, one of them, especially the defenseman, I think, was really good. Yeah, there's been, I think baseball had another too, but I can't recall. Oh, why can't I remember that? No, all the Alou brothers played together. Three of them actually played on the same team at one time. But
Tim Raines and Tim Raines Jr. in 2001 with the Orioles.
That's right. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Very small list, a short list. Oh, by the way, Burkhardt, the more I see on EA Sports College Football 25, I'm so geeked up. I'm nerding out right now. I cannot wait to have that in my bare hands and be able to play it for the first time in a decade.
When's
Epic.
it coming out?
July 15th. 16th. That's
Is
right.
it the
there.
15th or the 19th?
It
I
all
think it's the
depends
19th.
Well, it depends on if you get the pre-order or not, and you get it a couple extra days early.
you got. I bet you got the pre-order, right?
Dwight, it's the only sports game I bought every single year brand new because I just hated spending money for a roster update. But no, college football every single year. I still play the 2014 one because it's the last one that came out. So yeah, I'm geeked out for this. I do feel, Chad, just so you know, my throat's getting a little raspy. I do feel that in about 2 weeks' time, I'm probably going to have a contagious cough, and I'm going to have to stay home.
Well played, my friend. That's the way to do it. You start getting the cough early. You let everyone know that, you're feeling a little bit weird, and that way when the game arrives and you can say that you're officially sick, man, and then you can just nerd out on the game for like 24 to 48 hours. That's beautiful. It's beautiful. NCAA College Football 25. Awesome. All right, Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Hope you're enjoying the spectacular day. Clay Thompson, Godfather, you sent this note over, but according to the sports books, right now the Magic are the odds-on favorite to land Clay Thompson, followed by the Dallas Mavericks and then the Golden State Warriors. I want to ask you this. For Clay Thompson at this stage in his career, what do you think is the best place for Clay?
Boy, that's a tough call. I'll tell you, for Dallas, he would, he'd probably be a big help. A guy who can still make threes and also defend. Not as well as he used to, mind you, but he can still guard people probably better than what they had. I think he would make a difference there. He'd make a difference in Orlando, too, but they're not a team really ready, to go all the way. And Dallas probably is. I would also put in a word for the Warriors. I was looking today, Chad. He wants more money. He was out 2 years with that injury he had, and they paid him $63 million for those 2 years when he didn't play. Gosh, I know teams, you got to show some loyalty to your players, but players have to show loyalty back once in a while, too. Hey, he took a lot of money from them for not playing. I don't know.
Yeah, the tweet that was put out from the handle 30 Problems, the Warriors paid Clay Thompson a combined $67 million the 2 years he was injured, and then paid him $43 million this past year during the worst season of his career. If he's not willing to take a pay cut to finish his career with Steph and Draymond, he's selfish as bleep.
Well, how does that sound to you? I mean, it makes sense to me, too. I don't know how you feel about it, but, come on, Clay.
Well, the way I look at it is with athletes is that they have a limited amount of time where they can get maximum earning potential. And if Clay Thompson, it depends on what his motives are. If he wants to make more money and he's looking to get paid or one more big payday before it's all said and done, then he's just going to have to accept the fact it's going to have to be in Dallas Orlando or another location. The Warriors are not going to be able to do it based on their tax structure. I guess it's just a matter of what he wants at this stage in his career. Yeah. For me, what I would do, it depends on motives. Like if it's a basketball thing, I would think the Warriors would be the best case scenario because I believe Steve Kerr will find the best role and situation for him to have the most success. And and what I've seen from Clay over the course of time, he cares about how he plays. He cares about whether or not his team's having success. And depending on where he ends up, he could wind up frustrated in that situation. But Orlando and Dallas are both good situations. Orlando, a young roster. Dallas, of course, just went to the finals. So I don't know. I guess my point is I'm not sure I would pay big money for Klay Thompson because I don't think his body's in a position to where he can be consistent night in and night out. That's why I would pause before I gave Klay Thompson, who I love and respect, big money at this stage in his career. He's not the same player.
Well, and that's why there's a little controversy because they're not going to, apparently. But if they come down, if they pull a rabbit out of their hat and get Paul George, they might be a pretty good team if he sticks around.
All right, we'll come back and we'll get to your reaction. We got some thoughts on the Trailblazers, the Donovan Clingan press conference tomorrow. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, it's 5 o'clock. Chad here. What's up? The Golden State Warriors and guard Chris Paul intend to move the date to guarantee the $30 million on his contract to the start of free agency Sunday. Both sides will look for a trade. Trailblazers will hold their press conference tomorrow at 10 from the practice facility in Tualatin to introduce Donovan Clingan to Rip City. Woj reporting the Hawks are sending Dejounte Murray to the Pelicans for 2 firsts, Larry Nance Jr., and more. The Mavs have traded Tim Hardaway Jr. to the Pistons for Quentin Grimes to save some cash. The Mariners are back home after a brutal road trip. They're leading the West down to 4.5 games. They host the Twins tonight. First pitch at 6:40. Logan Gilbert will be on the bump. More of the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad along with Chris Burkhardt coming at you right now. All right, what's going on, my friends? Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Hope you're enjoying your Friday afternoon. And Godfather, I was jonesing today. I had to be a responsible human and not play golf because I had too much work going on. And I swung by my friends out at Forest Hills Golf Course today on my way down to Spirit Mountain Casino, and I had to do some different things out there. I'm going to be playing Forest Hills a ton next week. Did some pictures and some videos and walked around the course, and I want to take a look at some of the work they're doing. And I was jonesing so bad because the weather was perfect and the smell of the grass, and walking around on the golf course in your work pants and a regular shirt and knowing that you're not going to play. I didn't like anything about it, man. I almost broke out in cold sweats. I'm like, give me some of this golf. It was killing me.
Yeah, a guy like you, an addict. You know, it's like a food addict in a bakery. You know, you shouldn't be there, Chad.
I know. It's so bad.
Yeah.
You know, it's so nice outside, man. I love it. It's just so beautiful. The only downside is my stupid dog, little puppy Shots. The summertime where the sun comes up early, the birds chirping and knowing that there's squirrels and bunnies out there bumping around, he can't help himself. He's been waking me up so early, and I'm like, look, dog, I love you. You're my best friend, but I'm going to murder you if you don't stop it. He can't help himself, man. He wants to go out there and see what's cracking outside at way too early of an hour. It's driving me mad. Oh,
I suggest a doggy door, but maybe you're worried about predators with him out there or something. Are you concerned?
Well, I've found him. He's cornered multiple possums, and they touch noses, and he just barks really loud. I've seen him corner raccoons up a tree.
Wow.
Raccoons that are big enough to swallow him whole, but they're afraid of him because he's so loud. And so he can't. His nose is always getting him into trouble, which is crazy. But I was thinking about you today because you and I were talking about this. Dwight and I talk to our dogs like they're human beings.
Chad, you're revealing our secrets now.
I know, but I know that there's more people that do this.
Yeah.
Because I read that they enjoy our voices, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I talked to him, and before I left today, I said, look, buddy, I got to go to work. I'm going to be gone for a while, but I love you, and I promise I'll be back. And when I come back, we'll play, and I'll take good care of you. And I gave him kisses and stuff. And he always, he tries to act like he's ignoring me because he's sad that I'm leaving. But I always see his eyes following me out the door and stuff like that. But I know you do the same thing. But I know my thought is that if he recognizes certain words or phrases, that at least he knows I will return,
Yeah. No, my guy, Jack, every day the last thing I said as I walk out the door is, I'll be back. And he knows now that I will. And he just waits. He's got a glass door he can look through and see me come up to the driveway in the car and park and get out. And by the time I get in the door, he's jumping around because he knows as soon as I get home at this time of day, dinner time, he's ready to go.
That's what I'm talking about. All right, Dwight and Chat, Chris Burkhardt is here. He and I are both nerding out over EA Sports, brand new NCAA Football 25, which is coming out here in a couple of days, which is going to be awesome. The new Beverly Hills Cop movie is coming out. A lot of things to look forward to in the summertime. And by the way, Godfather, I just want to say thank you for sending me over the tweet. I was able to bookmark the NFL Sunday Ticket lawsuit.com which could be my pathway to getting some dollars for the way the NFL's been ripping me off for over a decade now.
And
they
they're
lose
talking
the suit,
about serious money coming back to you,
yes.
right?
Yeah. But as someone pointed out on social media, by the time the lawyers are done, we'll get about $3 in a check. Oh, by the way, I didn't know this, but this seems like a ripoff to me. I have a friend who just completed their jury duty in the city of Portland.
Yeah.
So they give you $10 a day for your troubles to go down and be a juror. But they didn't pay for parking, which was $16 to park in the garage. Is that not ridiculous?
That's our government at work.
You can't validate my parking, for crying out loud. I'm missing work. I got to be down here.
Yeah, I know.
I couldn't believe that. You're negative $6 in the hole just for being a juror.
Yeah.
That is wild to me.
Yeah.
No validation?
Well, you got to buy lunch too. It's not easy stuff.
Oh my gosh, I don't like to pay for parking, Godfather. Like, of all the things, I'm not a cheap guy, but the one thing that it's been ingrained in me from a young age, when my dad would take me up to the Kingdome and we'd walk like a mile to get to the Kingdome because he said on principle he does not pay for parking. He ingrained that in me at a young age. I don't like to pay for parking, and if I had to go down there and pay $16 and know that I was going to be negative $6 in the hole, it would drive me bonkers, like literally bonkers, crazy. That's crazy stuff right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you, on the other hand, you don't have a problem paying for parking because you like premium parking spots. You're all about that.
Yeah, absolutely. But, it's like even going to a Blazer game, I'll pay to park if I have to. I usually have a parking pass. But when I don't, I'll just save the receipt and write it off on my taxes.
Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie that he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have,
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay, let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to turn.
Let's not act like children.
That's one of the greatest sound bites in the history of sound bites right there.
Oh, man.
Burkhart, what was your reaction to that? The two old guys arguing over and hassling over handicaps. So good.
It was funny, but sad at the exact same time. But I'm kind of with the rest of the country. Like, I want to see this play out now. I mean, like American Idol style, The Voice. Like, you need to make this a made-for-TV event. Trump versus Biden out on the course, like mic'd up. I mean, it's great. I'll tell you one thing, Chad. What was great about the golf discourse between the two it united both sides. It united both sides, and that's special.
The other thing, Chad, that I was thinking about is he bragged about getting his handicap down while he was vice president. That tells you everything you need to know about being vice president of the United States. You're playing a lot of golf.
Dude, that's the thing about presidents. I've always thought it's kind of crazy, to have that type of position and be opened up to everyone knowing everything about you and criticizing you no matter what you do. But on the other hand, when I do recognize how much golf they get to play, and I'm guessing they don't have to pay for it, that might be the type of job I'm looking for. Maybe I should run, Godfather.
Yeah, maybe so. Like Dwight Eisenhower started it all. He was an avid golfer. He played all the time. There were tons of jokes about him out on the golf course all the time. And actually, Obama played quite a bit too, I think. Clinton, he played.
Yeah, Bush, all of them do.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. I would play golf. I would handle all decisions in regards to the country from the golf course because that's where I'd be every day.
Well, I'll tell you what, none of those presidents had even an 8 handicap. And so I would doubt that any of the candidates now who are much older.
Well, what was the deal on Trump and his club championship? Did he cheat in that one?
Yeah.
What was the scuttlebutt on that?
Well, he's the president of the club and the owner of the club. So that tells you all you need to know right now. If you want to be a member, you better toe the line. It was what I heard is there were members all the way down each fairway. And, if ball happened to go behind a tree, it didn't stay there for long. Somebody got the old foot mashie out and bumped it out of their bad spot for him. And the scorecard maybe was a little, nobody checked the math on the scorecard, and it might have been there's probably maybe an extra shot or two that didn't get added up, and a mulligan here and there, not only off the tee, but in the middle of the fairway.
That's very friendly.
Yeah, and then a lot of conceded putts, I bet. Yeah.
Well, the one guy that came to mind last night when I was watching this golf debate between the two candidates was Mike Rice, the old wild one.
Yeah.
He is one of the more shifty individuals I've ever seen on a golf course. Now, I will say this. We were the beneficiary because he was part of our team in this tournament we were playing out in Oregon City. And I was just surprised how free-moving and had no care in the world about adjusting a ball to make sure that, we had the proper angle or lie. And I was like, whoa, you are the wild one. He was willing to do whatever it took. He took that very seriously. So I thought, man, Mike Rice would be down with that because he's probably lied about his handicap too.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen those guys too. It's like, here it is. It's like late June, and somebody will get a bad lie out in the fairway, and it's like, it's still winter rules, right? I can reposition the ball. I can take it out of that divot and put it over here on the smooth grass. Why not?
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. I can't believe those guys brought that up during the debate. I've seen your swing. It's one. Only if you carry your own bag.
Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie that he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay, let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to
21
turn.
Let's not act like children.
Oh, God. It's a little late to be saying that.
And you cut out the best part, too, when Biden responds with, "You are a child."
Oh, man.
We need the match. I mean, that would be it's just too much to ask for. But Bryson DeChambeau's all about it. He wants to be a part of it. Phil Mickelson understood the conversation. Like, we need to get those two guys on the golf course. I'm here for it. We need that type of golf entertainment. Oh, gosh.
It'd be a great thing for the PGA to sanction just to get a little bit of that money from Liv. Tick them off a little bit.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next president of the United States.
And we watch Liv will offer up money to do it, too. They'll offer up money. Hey, we're willing to facilitate this if they want to make it happen. Oh, boy. All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the show. We got more things we got to get to, including the Trailblazers. The big press conference is tomorrow. What about Anthony Simons? How do people view him around the league in terms of his value? And we'll get to that next. Dwight and Chad, Chris Burkhardt, you got the Rip City Drive. Boy, nice pull, Burkhart. I love the classic Chicago 25 or 624. That song's so good.
We used to play it in the marching band. It was one of my favorite to play. It's so fun.
Yeah, where you were the drum major, but yet didn't play the drums. That's still confusing to me.
Between that and my dad's last name being Butcher, you don't know what to do with me.
Oh, dude, I told my workout partner this week, I said, you're not going to – I had to come clean. I felt guilty, but you gave me a bag of beef jerky, which was fabulous. And normally it's kind of a standard operating procedure where I share goodies like that with my workout partner. But I was a greedy SOB, and I ate the entire bag by myself. And so I came clean. And I told Luke, I said, look, man, I know that you're always on me about getting more beef jerky from the original steer. I said, he gave me a bag, but I greedily ate it myself, and I apologized to him. But then I informed him about the family business and how your dad's last name is Butcher, and he couldn't believe it either. He thought that was amazing.
Well,
think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Burkhart's dad runs the original steer, a meat market in town, and he has for years and years. And his last name is Butcher. And that's like a legitimate story. I thought for sure he was pulling my crank on that one, but he's not, man. It's a legitimate story. His last name is Butcher. That's incredible to me.
Story. I promise you that.
Gosh, that's awesome. Well, by the way, Godfather, I'm looking at this video that the Portland Trailblazers put out. Yeah. Donovan Clingan has arrived in town.
I saw.
And he's getting off on the tarmac. It looks like a private jet. Or some type of a charter jet, man. That's a good way to take care of your first-round pick.
Yeah, it's a big-time team right here. They sent the PJ for him, the private jet. He's feeling like a pretty special guy right now.
Gosh, how cool is that, though, man, to have that type of power where you bring, because it would have been pretty low class to be like, here's a couple of tickets. Grab the first flight out on Southwest. Yeah. But we got you the A boarding group.
Yeah. Did you want the aisle or the window?
That'd be so low class, man. Don't worry, we got you extra row, but don't worry, you got a little extra room there. But man, to send out the plane like that's first class. That's the way these franchises should be operating there. And of course, he arrives in town when the weather's spectacular, incredible.
Yeah. Just tell him it's like this every day.
I wouldn't want to pay for the maintenance and the cost of a private jet, but wouldn't that be nice to just anytime you're going to travel, you can just hop on a private jet, Godfather?
Oh,
that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, leave any time of the day that you want. Oh, my. That just looks so great, huh?
It would make life so appealing to be able to do that. One of the conversations you and I have had, and we're going to continue to have, is, we saw what the Blazers were able to do. They moved out one of their veterans, Malcolm Brogdon. We told you he would be the first to go. He was the first to go. The reason why is that he's entering into the final year in his contract, and they had to be able to get something in return, and they made the move to get Denny Avdia, a 6'9" forward. So they did that. They got their draft pick. Donovan Clingan was the player they wanted. He was there at 7. They were able to get him. But now the question is, which veterans are going to be next? You had a chance to talk to some people around the league. How do they view the roster in terms of, who the most valuable vet is and who the Blazers might be looking to move on from next?
Chad, most of the people I talked to thought that Anthony Simons was the guy for a variety of reasons. He is a player probably with the most trade value on the team. People would want him. He's so valuable offensively and can play both guard positions. And I think, too, there's that whole issue of kind of clearing the decks for Scoot Henderson and making sure that he feels comfortable as the starter, not looking over his shoulder all the time at a player who might at this stage be better than him. So, this way both the guards, Sharp and Scoot, feel comfortable in their roles. And here's the other thing, too, that I hadn't thought of before, Chad. Simons has been a good soldier. He's gone through these tanks, and I think a couple of times sat down on the bench with injuries that might have been injuries he would have just played through at other times in the franchise history. But he sat down because the team was into tanking and all. I think it's a fair thing at this point. If he's not going to be a starter, which the way Joe Cronin sounded the other day, he's not, then move him. Do the fair thing for him. Don't worry about how good he could be for somebody else. You're doing the right thing for your franchise, and that's what matters. They've been paralyzed for a few years, And I believe it all goes back to the Jermaine O'Neal trade, where they trade away a kid, and a year later he's a man making All-Star teams.
Yeah, the way I look at Anthony Simons is, one, I love Ant. I think he's awesome, and he's been a great trailblazer. I'm a big fan of him and the way he operates. But the problem is right now, Godfather, they have a coach who wants to win in Chauncey Billups. So if Ant's on the team, he'll get the lion's share of the minutes there at point guard. I don't believe, regardless of what anyone says, I just don't think Anthony and Scoot can work together for long stretches on the floor at the same time. So that's an issue. And most importantly, this season is about player development, and I want them to clear the runway so that Scoot and Shaden can get the majority of minutes at guard and be able to play big minutes late in games, early in games, and be able to develop and get a chance to develop that chemistry. And I just think that Ant at this point will disrupt that process. And so I think it's going to be much easier if they can make a move. And then for Anthony Simons, if they get him in the right situation, he'll thrive no matter where he goes because his skill set will travel well. He's a great offensive player. He can make shots. He can create for himself. I do think there are teams that will want him. And most importantly, Godfather, he's on a fairly friendly contract, and he's still young. So I think the value on his contract, his ability, and his youth, I think makes him a desirable piece. But if they're trying to put themselves in a position to have access to Cooper Flagg next year, which they are, then I just don't see how Anthony Simons being in a position where Chauncey Billups will have access to him on a nightly basis is good for what they're trying to accomplish. Not to mention you take time away from the guys that need time to play to develop.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, too, is they need to find out, is this a good matchup for them? These two young guards, can they play together long term? Will this work? Is there a mesh there? Is there some sort of bonding between those two guards? Because I think this franchise is looking forward to having those two guys play together for a long time. So let's find out what that looks like, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple other guys, Robert Williams, I would be in favor of moving him sooner rather than later. He's expected to be ready to go come training camp. I just don't want the Blazers to have him and play him and risk injury because that would further damage the trade possibilities for him. So I think once he's been given the clearance and is ready to roll for camp, I would look to make a move on him sooner rather than later. And then Matisse Thybulle, another guy that I really like because he's a great character, great human, a different type of player, great defensive mind. He really doesn't fit what this team's trying to do right now, and I do think there are teams out there that would consider his defensive acumen and what he can do on that end of the floor as a value and could use a player like him. There's a lot of contenders out there, so I don't know. That's kind of the way I see those guys with Ant. Clearing space for the young guys. Robert Williams making sure that you move him while he's healthy before another injury takes place. And then with Matisse, as much as I like him, I just think that there are younger guys that can play behind him, and there will be contenders out there that see a value in him.
Chad, let me say this about Robert Williams, too. I did have one guy I talked to today said, and obviously I can't say who or what team, but he said, I think my team would be interested in him if we saw a clean bill of health in training camp. If we knew he was healthy at the start of camp, there would be interest, not only from us but from other teams, because he's that good. And he's played in big games. He's battle-tested, good team guy, and really outstanding defender.
No question. And the thing with Williams is I know there'll be teams out there that can find a need for him because of his play. He's a terrific player, but I think what you can do now is you bring him in with the understanding that you got to keep him healthy so they can come up with a certain minute restriction or an idea of how much to play him and how to utilize him to make sure you keep him healthy. And if they can do that, even in smaller minutes, he can be incredibly productive out there because of his explosiveness and what he can do. So I don't think it would be a hard selling point to move Robert Williams because of his talent level, as long as he can showcase that he's 100% coming off the knee procedure. That's
no question.
Yep. All right. What are you hearing about Clingan from the guys you talked to? Do they like him? Do they not like him? What's the overall word on Clingan?
Everybody I talked to liked him, Chad. There's no disagreement on him at all. I think people believe he was a great pick, and I think a lot of people would have taken him on their team. Attitude-wise, checks every box. Hard worker, competitor, will do what you ask him to do, very coachable, has come a long way in his basketball skills, and always been a winner. All those things are fine. And, the shot blocking is a big deal. He can do that and has a great instinct for it, which you need to have. Just the skills are not enough. You have to have that instinct when you block shots. And we've seen some guys have it, some guys not have it. And I think long-term you can afford this year to just let him get his feet on the ground. Let him feel his way through what it's going to be like in the NBA. He'll be in foul trouble because almost every rookie is that plays any position, let alone the bigs, who are always in foul trouble as rookies. They just tag those guys with every foul that they think they see. So he'll have to get used to that, get used to not complaining about it. But I think we will see those defensive skills through the season as he works on his offensive game.
Hey, Burkhart, how do you see the veterans and who might be moved next? Like, what kind of pathway do you see for Cronin?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question. It is really good. I mean, to Dwight's point, I think the fact that nobody is talking about Matisse Thybulle kind of lends some credence to the fact that I think a lot of people might be talking about Matisse Thybulle. I still look at Jeremy Grant and DeAndre Ayton, Chad, and see a pathway for them to stay here, at least in the short term. And then I do think Robert Williams, I think the writing might be on the wall there. The bill of health isn't great. They just drafted another center that's going to help depth-wise. Don't know what you got there. But I think Thybulle and Williams, I think are two names that are probably getting calls on right now.
Well, we're already seeing a lot of activity, Godfather, today with some of the moves that went down. Dejounte Murray is on his way to the New Orleans Pelicans. We could start to hear things pretty quick. Free agency will kick off on Sunday, so I'm hopeful that we'll get some Trailblazer news over the weekend in terms of, vets. I mean, they're not going to look to sign players, I don't think, but obviously the trade market, they could be very active. But
Sure.
I really don't see a need to go out and sign, free agents or to, find ways to add more money to the books right now, especially after what they accomplished by getting rid of the Malcolm Brogdon contract and bringing in Denny Avdia. And that's the next thing you need to figure out. How do teams get agents to agree to a backwards contract like we see with Avdia? That's amazing to me.
You hardly ever see those, Chad. I am not sure why he signed a deal that pays him less as the contract moves on. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't know. It must have something to do with their salary cap or something. I don't get it. I don't.
All right, Rip City Drive, Dwight and Chad with you. Hope you're enjoying your Friday afternoon. The sunshine is spectacular, and we're now, a couple of days into summertime, Godfather? And I know you're loving these temperatures out there, too, when we start pushing 80. What's it like in the studio right now? Freezing booty?
Oh, sheesh. Yeah, it's terrible. It's freezing in here. And I'm sure Burkhart and I are the only two guys in the building. So, who cares? They're not going to spend any money on heat for us. So, there's somebody in the traffic booth there, but it's just us. There's no one else around.
All right. One other thing I wanted to ask you about was Chris Paul. He's got that $30 million contract situation. They've got to make a decision on the option. The Warriors and Paul have agreed to push it back to the start of free agency. They're looking for a deal.
Yeah.
What type of team is looking for a guy like Chris Paul right now?
Well, the Lakers would take him, I believe. That would be one spot. It's tough with him because, if you still have to pay him $30 million, I don't know, because he's another guy. He's hurt quite often now and never won a championship. The long playoff grind usually gets him somewhere along the line in the playoffs. He goes down. I don't know. It's getting towards the end of the line. What would you do? Would you give him $30 million for your team? I mean, you got to have cap space to go get him. Maybe he'd play for less now. I don't know.
I think he's still got value. I don't like the $30 million price tag. I think that's obviously pretty steep. My biggest issue with Chris Paul is just, the availability. If he was someone that you knew you could keep healthy throughout the course of the year where he was coming off the bench and providing quality minutes. I mean, when he was healthy for the Warriors, he had some solid minutes for them. He's a smart guy, great in the pick and roll situation. I don't know. Would the Lakers take a chance on him if they're going after Trae Young?
Well, not if they're going to get Trae Young, no. And I don't know if they're going to get him or not. If they don't, I think they still feel they could use a good point guard.
I know, but it'll be interesting to see. I think LeBron and AD are expecting the Lakers to go all in on finding another piece.
Yeah, they are. And, LeBron has an affinity for those older guys with experience who will get him the ball, basically. And Chris Paul would be happy to accommodate him, sure. But Chris Paul can be a little tough to play with, too. A lot of his former teammates will tell you that. He jumps on people all the time if they don't do what he wants them to do. I don't know how that works with LeBron.
One side note, I'm sure you saw this, but Dick Vitale is announcing that he's got another.
Yeah.
He had another biopsy. He's got another lymph node in his neck that was cancerous.
Yeah.
We just got a report like a week ago that he was given clearance to be able to broadcast games this year.
Yeah, he had to have.
Gosh, that sucks.
He had one more PET scan, and it revealed a spot there. And yeah, he's been through so much, Chad.
Have you had a chance to meet him and be around him?
No, I've met him once, but not be around him at all. I've probably never had a conversation with him, but I would certainly have liked to have had a conversation with him. I just feel for him because he makes his living with his voice. Now, he's well set, don't get me wrong, but he loves his job. And, this throat cancer and all these things involving his neck and his throat have taken his job away from him. So he hasn't even been able to talk for months on end, all during his treatments, and it's just a shame.
He says, my report on the biopsy of the lymph node in my neck has arrived, and it is cancerous. With all the prayers I have received and the loving support of my family, friends, and ESPN colleagues, I will win this battle. Surgery on Tuesday will be a success. Thanks for all the prayers. Dick Vitale, we were talking about announcers and AI and using Al Michaels' voice for the Olympics. Dick Vitale he's like part of the soundtrack of my life too, Godfather, because growing up watching college basketball, he was a part of so many big games, and a lot of the players I used to watch and follow in college before they got to the NBA, he was there. Like Dick Vitale he's like a media icon.
Yeah. And
he's a good dude. He's a nice guy.
Yeah. Everybody says that. He's beloved in the coaching community. People just love Dick. And I think it's such a shame to see this play out this way.
Oh, my brother, Chris, he just started his I told you that he had been diagnosed with cancer, Godfather. He just started his chemo. I think they call it a port. He got the port put in, and he just started the chemo a couple of days ago. And he said that everything went fine. He did say it was it made him very nauseous.
Yeah.
But, so he's begun that battle. The difficult part for him is that he's a park ranger, so he's out kind of in the middle of nowhere in Georgia. So that's going to make it difficult on him. But, hopefully his battle will be successful as well. But, man, it's like, dude, cancer, there's everyone we know, everyone knows someone that's going through the battle. And if not, you're going to end up going through it yourself. Brutal. Yes. I just can't believe with all the time and the money and the attention that we've had some successes, but we still haven't been able to find, that cure. It sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love Dickie V.
Yeah, I think everybody does. Hey, there's one more bulletin out there, Chad. I don't know if you've heard it, but the heavy rumor going around that LeBron James is actually sleeping with one of his teammates' mothers.
No, I saw that. Come on, Godfather. I saw that. Jeez.
Thank you. Daniel liked it.
No. Daniel will laugh at anything.
That's true. Mostly he laughs at his own stuff.
Yeah, the ESPN coverage of LeBron is very weird to me. It's not even LeBron that I'm interested in. What I would like to know is how Bronny truly feels about the situation he's in. Yeah. But no one's going to ask him that, and he won't be able to give a real answer. But I would like to know the truth from the inside out on what Bronny feels about this whole situation. Maybe he likes it. But my guess is he probably doesn't like it, but felt pressured to follow the pathway that his father wanted him to follow.
Yeah.
That'd be my guess.
That's what I would guess, too.
Hey, Burkhart, would you want your dad to usher you into the NBA like that?
No, not in the NBA. I'd want to make a name for myself and go play anywhere else but his locker room. Do I really? LeBron's 40 and Bronny's 19. That's got to be so awkward in the locker room. I don't want to do that, man. Heck no.
You're right. A 19-year-old dude does not want to be hanging out with dad in the locker room. That's awkward.
You're not kidding. How about on the road with the other young players? You think he wants his father around watching?
Yeah, what if he's out hanging out?
Yeah. Where are you going?
With some younger players.
No. You need to go to bed, Bronny.
Yeah.
You need to go to bed. Okay, Dad.
He's like literally trying to sneak his girlfriend into the hotel without Dad seeing. Like, that whole thing is just odd to me.
Yeah.
I want to sit courtside, though. Like, Dad, pass me the ball. Dad, I'm open. Like,
yeah, what does he say?
Do you call him Dad? Do you call him Braun?
Call him by his number.
No, you got.
Hey, 23.
No, you got to call him
open.
Dad. No, I know a guy that works with his dad, and he calls him by his first name at work, and it's just weird, man. It's like, no, that's your dad.
Yeah. I do when I'm being ornery.
Does your son call you Dwight, Godfather?
No, he he has several names for me. Pops, I hear quite a bit, but I used to hear what he called me. Him and his buddies all called me Dewey.
That's cool.
To be fair,
hey,
Chad,
Book, our dude.
Oh, yeah. I think that's what you're asking. But to be fair, I don't call my dad at work very often because he's not used to hearing it at work. He's used to hearing, hey, Jim. So I'll be like, hey, Dad. He won't respond like, Jim. And then he'll turn around like, what? Like, he doesn't hear it
but you're
Dad half the time.
But that's okay because your instinct is to say Dad, which is normal.
Oh, without a doubt.
It's just weird to me when I hear a child call their parent by the first name. It's just weird. That's all. All right, we'll come back. High fives, Rib City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Well, I never thought I was going to do this in the history of my life, Godfather, but I want to give a high five out to CNN for the debate last night, the way it was set up. It made for good television and entertaining, so I guess I will give a high five to CNN.
Worthwhile, I thought, Chad. I'm going to give mine to an inanimate object right now, that private jet that's sitting out on the tarmac at the Portland airport.
That's dope.
Way to go, Blazers. This is a classy way to bring this young man Clingan into Portland. On a beautiful Sunday afternoon, he arrives in a private jet.
You got anything you want to hand out, Chris Burkhardt?
Yeah, I'm giving my high five to the game of golf for allowing us to have that soundbite last night.
Gosh, we might as well listen to that one more time. It's I'm going to remember it for the rest of my life. It's so beautiful to have those two guys talking about handicaps, Godfather. Like I never, you watch something, you're watching a debate, you're like, wait a second, what's going on here? Like what's up? What's up with this? I just couldn't believe it. It's like you see it and you're like, is this happening right now? I don't understand. I was literally stunned by that one. Didn't that surprise you, or does nothing surprise you anymore because you've seen everything at this stage of your life, Godfather?
No, I never expected a presidential debate would come down to arguing over who the better golfer was. Something that's easily settled. Pick a day and go out and settle it on the course.
President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's it. Anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8. But I have, how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Hey, let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to
21
Let's not act like children.
President Biden.
That's a good bite. That's quality. That is a quality bite. Another question I have, what do you guys think? Are the Hawks really going to keep Trae Young now? Are they going to deal him? Are they done with that whole experiment? They're not going to keep Trae Young, are they?
I don't think so, Chad.
You get rid of Murray and keep Trae?
No. I think it's a teardown now, isn't it? It sure looks like
it's got to be.
It's got to be because there was reports earlier today before the Murray trade that the Hawks have basically said, their draft pick, number 1 guy, and is the only guy that's untouchable. Everybody else on the table, Murray, Young, everybody. So like Dwight said, I think they're going full tear down, get assets, go Young.
I don't know why I played Daniel's laugh. I just like hearing it. That he was that from the thruple soundbite?
I think
so. That's.
Grant hits the thruple.
What do you guys got going? You playing golf this weekend, Godfather, or what?
Yeah, I am. At least once,
nice.
Maybe twice. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm still jealous. You live on I can't believe you live on a golf course. It's such a beautiful thing.
After dinner, I'm going down to the range too and hit some balls.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
That practice range is money, especially when they got it moved up on the grass.
Uh-huh.
That's a good practice. That's one of the better practice facilities I've seen on a course in the area because they've got Willamette Valley has got a great driving range, but then it's got the huge putting green they got balls everywhere, so it's easy to do your little chipping and putting. And then I like they got that area off to the side where for your longer chips where you can do like 80. 60, 80, 100-yard chip shots with different, greens and stuff like that. It's money, man.
Yeah.
It's a great place to warm up and get ready to roll.
Mm-hmm. I just wish I had the game to match. The facilities are better than I am.
Have you taken lessons out there?
Oh, yeah. I've tried, yeah. Yeah, I have. Yeah, we have a very good teaching pro, too. I just don't play enough, Chad. He's been great. He's taught me a lot, but I just got to play more. That's the whole thing. And it looks like my back is going to allow that now. So I'm very hopeful.
What is that? What is your back your big issue now that you're older? Is it back or something else?
It's been an issue my whole life. I was born without a couple vertebrae in my lower back, and every once in a while it kicks up and it gets irritated, and so I'm kind of sidelined for a while.
Well, Chris Burkhardt put this out via Rip City Radio 620. The Trailblazers Summer League schedule, they take on the Spurs July 13th, 6 o'clock ESPN2. They'll meet the 76ers on July 15th, 5:30 on NBA TV. Wizards on July 16th, which is 5:30 on NBA TV. And then the Hornets July 19th, 8 o'clock on ESPN2. So I guess, do you think, is Scoot going to go? Well, they'll put Scoot down there, won't they?
I would certainly hope so. I think he needs to play down there. I assume they will. I think we'll find that out tomorrow. Chris and I are both going to that news conference, so I'm kind of
That'd be
happy
great.
to go. Yeah.
All right, big thanks to Chris Burkhardt for, being Chris Burkhardt and doing everything. Big thanks to all of you for tuning in and joining us today. We appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the sunshine and the weekend. Godfather, nice to be with you, my friend. Hope you have a good night.
You too, Chad. Have a great weekend.
All right, Dwight and I will be back on Monday, Rip City Drive at 3, and we'll get a chance to break down the Clingan press conference and the takeaways there. You guys enjoy your night, and we'll talk to you later.
Let's get out of here. Get on up for the